Is September 8th at 7:08 p.m. This is a meeting of the Fairfax County Trails, Sidewalks, and Bikeways Committee. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, committee needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of the committee is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Accordingly, I am going to conduct a roll call and ask that each committee member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. I am Ken Comer, the representative at large and the chair. Braddock District, Mr. Cosgriff. Mr. Cosgriff is not here tonight. Hunter Mill District, Mr. Rowe.
Hey, this is Alex. I'm here at home in Reston.
Thank you, Alex. Mount Vernon District, Mr. Klein.
Yeah, hi, this is Jim Klein from the Mount Vernon District at home.
Jim. Drainesville District, Mr. Smith.
This is Wade Smith in the Drainesville District in McLean.
Thank you. Providence District, I assume we do not have a replacement. Is that correct? Springfield District, Mr. Liebert.
It's Carl Liebert from the Springfield District.
Thank you, Carl. Lee District, Mr. Pipkin. No response. Sully District, Ms. Ampa.
Yes, I'm here. I'm at home in Oakton for Sully District.
Thanks, Karen. Clifton Horse Society, Ms. McDaniel.
This is Katie McDaniel calling from my home in Oak Hill, Hunter Mill District.
Thanks, Katie. Fairfax Alliance for Better Bicycling, Mr. Newman.
Hey, this is Sean Newman. I am calling from my home in Fairfax County.
Thanks, Sean. Fairfax Area Disability Services Board, Ms. Cohen.
Debbie Cohen, calling from home in Burke.
Thanks, Debbie. Fairfax County Federation of Citizens Associations, Mr. Tipton. Not present. Fairfax County Park Authority, Ms. Iannetta.
This is Beth Iannetta calling from my house in City of Fairfax.
Northern Virginia, thanks, Beth. Northern Virginia Builders Industry Association, Ms. Portilla. In response, Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority, I have as now vacant. Is there a replacement?
This is Mike Depew, your Nova Parks representative from my home in Prince William County.
Mike Depew, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Mike.
Great to meet you guys.
Welcome. Washington Area Bicyclists Association, Mr. Albers.
Howard Albers from my home in Fairfax.
Thank you, Howard. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of this committee. It is a practice to approve this and all subsequent motions by acclamation, so I will ask now if there are any objections or nay votes. Hearing none, the motion carries. I'm going to move on to other attendees after I finish the script, so I forget which way I normally do it. Second, having established each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency and compel these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for the public to access the meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this committee to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of this committee and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move this committee may conduct this meeting electronically through the Cisco WebEx video conferencing platform. This format will also provide a dedicated phone line. The public may access this meeting by going to fairfax.webex.com and entering event number 179-851-4340 and password small t, small m, capital W, 8, small c, capital M, small v, small I, capital P, 83, or by calling 844-621-3956 and using access code 179-851-4340. It is so moved. I will ask if there are any objections or nay votes. Hearing none, the motion carries. Finally, need to dispense for FOIA's usual procedures to assure continuity of government. Finally, it is next required to establish that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda address the emergency itself, are necessary for continuity in Fairfax County government, and or are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of this committee's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved. I will ask again if there are any objections or nay votes. Hearing none, the motion carries. And before we begin our agenda, I'd like to first of all find out who from staff is here.
And this is David Loss, from FCDOT.
Right.
Chris Wells, Active Transportation Program Manager, FCDOT.
Nicole Winans, also with FCDOT, Active Transportation Program.
And having that, I guess we have some members of the public whose names I have not called. So would you folks let us know, certainly identify yourselves, if you wouldn't mind at this point.
This is Philip Latassa from Friends of Macadam Creek, if you can hear me.
Yes, Philip, we can hear you.
Okay, great.
Hi, this is Casey. I'm tuning in from Fairfax City.
Got it, Casey?
This is Ethan Vitorovich. I'm tuning in from Springfield.
Okay, thank you, Ethan. We hear you. Anybody else? Okay, so for the members of the public, we set aside some time for you folks to speak openly. We have to do that at 8:30. So I'll stop what we're doing at 8:30 and open the floor to you. And that having been said, I will open the okay. So first item on the agenda is the review and approval of the 2020-21 virtual meeting minutes. The read-ahead copies have been provided separately by Beth, and the ones that we're looking to approve tonight have been in your inbox for a month. Beth, can you at least tell us how many of those there are and which months they are?
Sure. Of course, you asked me that one. I don't have it in front of me. We we have minutes going back for 2020 was June, July, August, September, October, November, and December, I believe. They were sent on July 15th to your inboxes, and I did not receive any comments that I know of via email. If anyone has any corrections that they know of, could you let me know right now? Silence is good.
I did
Yes.
read them all when you sent them, and I wasn't looking for typos or anything, but I didn't see any, and I didn't see anything that I thought that I needed to comment on. It all looked fine to me.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Jim Klein sent me a comment to add in a web link to where to find the minutes. So I will do that for those. So I will make those changes. But without hearing any other changes, I make a motion that we approve the bulk of the 2020 minutes that were sent in July for final approval.
Bill needs a second.
I second that.
Okay, so we'll do this by acclamation. Are there any objections or nay votes? So the motion carries unanimously for the 2020 minutes. And just so everybody knows, we will deal with the 2021 minutes next month. So you should see both July's and this month's minutes in your inbox shortly. Thank you, Ben. All right, let's go for the status report. Active Fairfax Transportation Plan, Nicole.
I had to find my buttons here. Hey, thank you very much. Always great to be back. Can you hear me okay? Great. And I know you have a full agenda.
Yes,
so I just want to keep it brief. So I just want to let you know that we have just given notice to proceed to the consultant to continue phase 1. We ran out of funds before phase 2 was approved. So we developed an interim task order, which we called phase 1B, to keep work going, and that just went through. So while we're waiting for the funding for phase 2, we can keep working, and that will include tasks like project management. Of course, we want to refine the equity analysis a little bit, as well as do a lot more work on the draft Safe Streets for All program recommendations, particularly additional graphics to explain why we are doing this effort, and educational content as well. So that's on that. I'm not sure. I know the members from the public here, and I don't want to give too much of a background. I'm sorry for just giving a brief status report, but I should probably mention that the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan, in a nutshell, is updating the comprehensive plan guidance for the active transportation network in Fairfax County. So the trails, both paved and unpaved, bikeways, and also will provide pedestrian facility design guidance, among other things like policy recommendations and program recommendations to increase usage. So that's a project in a nutshell. So now we're continuing working on phase 1, which focused more on what is the condition we're working with, what are existing facilities, demographics, basically doing the groundwork, looking at the policies that are out there to establish recommendations for the active transportation network in phase 2. So phase 2 is considered for funding as part of carryover. So that is great news. And we are hoping to get the green light on October 5th. So that's coming up soon. We're working on the scope for phase 2. I think you may have seen a draft scope back in the day when we first looked at the project. We did develop a full scope for the entire project, so we know kind of what we are trying to achieve. So now we have to refine it based on a year of work on phase 1, and we'll have that ready to go when funding comes through, so we can dive into other very important tasks like the development of the active transportation network. We also are currently have our visions, goals, and objectives document, which was an outcome of phase 1. There was a big public outreach in the spring. We had a survey out, we had maps out, where the community was invited to share their concerns and their vision for active transportation. So we wrapped this all up into a draft vision, goals, and objectives, which are on the project website available. And I can drop or maybe someone else can drop the website into the chat so you can check it out. You can read the document and then send us an email or fill out a form or give us a call if you have any concerns or any feedback you would like to provide on the draft language. And we have presented all of this to this board already. So this is now open to the public until September 19th. And we have 2 community meetings coming up next week, one on September 13th at 7 p.m. and one on September 15th at 6:30 p.m. And both of these are virtual, and the access information is listed on the project website as well. And we're hoping, once we hear back from the community, have made the edits, have discussed this with the board transportation committee at the end of September, that we can expect board action shortly after in fall. So we can use these vision goals and objectives for active transportation Fairfax County as the foundation to develop the network recommendations and facility recommendations in phase 2. As you know, we're also working on the Safe Streets for All program recommendations. Those are still in development, so I have no new draft to share at this point. We were waiting for that funding to do more work on that, and this finally came through, so that should take a couple more weeks to get the new draft, but we have passed on all your comments to the consultant, and there were other, a good amount of comments from other departments internally, as well as our advisory groups. So if you hear from the public, we have a equity advisory group for this project, as well as a youth advisory group, but of course also present to standing committees like this one, but also the transportation advisory committee that the county has. So everyone provided great comments that we are integrating into this document, which shows recommendations for a program that would work towards making our streets safer, particularly for bicyclists and pedestrians. So do you have any specific questions? So I went pretty quickly through that, but anything I didn't cover or you'd like to hear more about?
Nicole, if somebody wants to send an extended comment of some sort, how would they do that? Like a Word document? Something like that.
Via email, activefairfax@fairfaxcounty.gov, and that's all on our website, but I can also drop it in the chat as information. But yeah, long emails and long Word documents are welcome. Great background information to have. And one of the next steps is, if you feel like it's a little bit high level, and we have received some really detailed recommendations also from members of this committee, we will develop more detailed action steps under each objective where those would fit as well. So any ideas in that regard are always welcome as well.
Yeah, this is Jim Klein. There is a public meeting coming up, and could you just explain what the purpose of that meeting is and who will be presenting and how you intend to gather input?
Sure. So that meeting will provide an overview over the project, but also, what we heard from the public in the spring. So we're going over some of the survey feedback we received, and then we'll, discuss the draft vision and goals for the project, and we will have time to answer questions and listen to feedback that the public may be interested to provide. So we're not going to talk about the safe streets, for example. So it's very focused on the vision goals and objectives. Does that answer your question? Oh, and I will present, sorry.
Yeah, when's the date of it and time and all that?
Oh, September 13th and September 15th.
Okay.
The meeting on Monday is at 7 o'clock, and on Wednesday it's at 6:30. And it's virtual, so you will need the access information from the website.
Great, thank you.
There's a question in the chat. Is there any plans for protected bike intersections like they have in the Netherlands? Yes, and we're already actually designing those in 3 capital projects we're currently working on in Reston, those protected intersections are part of off-street cycle track designs. We're also having a modified version along Richmond Highway, not separated the entire way through the intersections, but that's definitely a national best practice now, and we are able to do those and are starting to implement these in already funded and ongoing projects that are in design. And they will be certainly encouraged through the active Fairfax transportation plan as well.
Thanks,
No
Nicole.
other
Appreciate
questions?
that.
Thank you.
And I'm sure folks can get a hold of Nicole to ask any further questions. All right, so let's move on to a discussion of the Route 1 corridor. Jim Klein, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. I really wanted to get an update on, I guess, the measures that we put in our letter. There were 8 of them or 10 of them. I think the Fairfax County DOT added a few more even, but it's been rather silent. I just wanted to know, I think you got a list of 4 bullets there on the screen. Maybe there's one below that, but what is the status of the speed study? What any of those pedestrian safety implementation measures have you begun or at least started to implement, or wouldn't it be great if it was implemented? What's the status of the lower design speed for the Richmond Highway BRT project? And then we did get another fatality on Route 1 and Pohick Road intersection near there. So I guess I'm continuing to want to get an update on what is being done about the continued fatal highway we're dealing with on Route 1. I'm not sure who can help me answer those questions, but I'll take any information you can provide. Maybe Chris?
Yep, sure. That'll probably be me. Hold on. I turned off my Outlook to preserve bandwidth, but the answers are in an email. So or 2 different emails. Where's the, so there's that one. Give me 1 second. Okay, that one. Okay, so I'm reading. I can't see you all, but first of all, the low-hanging fruit one is different things that VDOT agreed to implement. So on 8 different traffic signals in the corridor, the leading pedestrian intervals have been added, and an additional at 8 signals with 9 crosswalks, I think it says, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but anyway, at 8 or 9 signals, the leading pedestrian interval has been added. If you're not familiar with the leading pedestrian interval, that gives a head start to pedestrians before the green phase comes on for the cars, anywhere from 2 to 5 seconds. That makes pedestrians more visible to turning drivers, and it has shown to have a crash reduction factor of like 13%. We're piloting using the pedestrian recall and the rest and walk function of a traffic signal for side street crossings at 3 intersections in the Hybla Valley area of the corridor. That means pedestrians don't have to push the push button to get the walk signal on the side street, and then it maintains the walk signal for a much longer duration as long as the mainline green light phase is going. And then signage and crosswalk marking improvements at the 16 signalized, at all 16 signalized intersections. So that's high visibility crosswalk markings, and the current MUTCD sign, turning vehicles yield to pedestrians. So those are the low-hanging fruit ones.
So the crosswalks are implemented or will be implemented, or what is the status of those crosswalks? Because I haven't seen them, but doesn't mean they're
okay.
not
Well, that might be work ongoing. striping work can't be done on wet pavement. So I know that those might not, the way I'm reading this email, those might not have been completed yet. The signal operations stuff should be completed. So the signage and striping is probably still to come. If I recall, they did commit to do it this year, which means striping has to be done before it drops below 40. So this summer or fall.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that before I move on? Okay, then the bigger issues, the speed issue. VDOT has begun the work of doing the speed study. Furthermore, we've heard from VDOT that they're going to go ahead and let us do the design of the Richmond Highway widening project and the Richmond Highway bus rapid transit project, assuming a 35-mile-an-hour speed rather than the current 45-mile-an-hour speed. We don't have that in writing yet, but that's what we've been verbally instructed to do. VDOT is initiating the speed study this month, which should allow us to certainly get all that incorporated into the design of those projects. And the results could be known by the fall of 2022 at the earliest. So those are the big issues. Obviously, the speed study is important, and the design of the projects are important for all of us. So I'm back on camera and just looking at the agenda. As you mentioned, there still continues to be fatalities, and that's unfortunately the reality of the history of Route 1. So the road projects themselves, the BRT and the road widening projects do provide pedestrian bicycle facilities along the entire corridor. Today, it would be very challenging to ride your bike along the entire corridor. So, those are certainly positives coming out of the projects. As Nicole mentioned, there are some innovative safety treatments at the intersections that we've worked hard to incorporate best practices, as these, in particular, at the BRT station intersections, which have large corners that we call plazas, where we anticipate, massing of pedestrians and interaction between pedestrians and bicyclists. So that's what I have off top of my head, so to speak, with the emails that I got on some of those updates. Is there anything else in particular you'd like to ask about for Route 1?
Well, I mean, it's really good news that you're able to use the 35-mile-per-hour design speed, so that the speed study is not going to be done for another year. Is that there seems to be I guess I'm confused by that.
Well, yes, it is confusing. So we're taking a risk. If by chance the speed study or if VDOT would not allow the speed to be reduced, then the next year's worth of design would have to be done over. But conversely, if we didn't take that risk and continued to design for 45 miles an hour, and then the speed limit is reduced in a year, then we would have to do over the work and do it at 35 miles an hour. So the communication we've been given from VDOT is that we should go ahead and we were willing to take that risk. And that's how we approached our discussion with them. But the indication we've gotten from them is that we should go ahead and design these projects at 35 miles an hour. So that's big news. That's hot off the presses, so to speak. Again, we don't have it in writing, but that's what our guidance is for our design teams at the moment. that'll make big differences in some, engineering details that the public may not even notice, but station design, barrier design at the stations, radiuses, obviously, things like that. Now, I guess we shouldn't oversell it. Route 1 is generally straight. So straight roads don't have a lot of design elements that are driven by speed, but certainly making all the decisions to be conservative, conservative in the sense of not prioritizing high-speed vehicle movement and being conservative for pedestrian safety. Those design decisions now can proceed with that guidance in that direction. So that certainly is a positive. And more importantly, ultimately, when the project is done and the road is hopefully should be posted at the lower speed limit, the character of the driving experience will be changed in a way that encourages drivers to also drive appropriately. A lot of this is, a classic chicken and an egg. The land uses will not change overnight. The density around the BRT stations will not appear overnight. But with these projects, we need to set the stage so that when the land uses change and the massing of people occurs, that the built environment is supportive of reduced speeds, which would come more naturally when there's dense development right up against the street, when there's 50 pedestrians crossing in the crosswalk, so on and so forth. So this is definitely positive movement that the community has been asking for.
And that's really great news. That's very exciting. And the status of the other projects also good news. So that's fantastic.
Chris, I have a question. So I have done a bit of writing down in that area, and there are some, if one wants to move through that area as a cyclist, you almost always want to stay on the side roads, because you just said that's impossible to really safely ride on a bicycle. But there are some places, and I'm thinking Little Hunting Creek, for example, where there are no side roads from Route 1, where it crosses Little Hunting Creek, all the way to the Potomac River. There's other than the Mount Vernon Parkway, there is which cyclists can't go on. There's no way to get across Little Hunting Creek, so you have to ride Route 1. As you ponder, perhaps even spot improvements, there are places that would really benefit from a bicycle facility, a bike lane, or a side path, or something like that, just to connect side streets to each other, as opposed to the whole corridor. And it would be nice if you could do those first. Anybody thinking about that, or thinking like me at all? Over.
Yes, there's definitely thinking like that. So first of all, we are completing the Mount Vernon Trail, for lack of a better term, the US Route 1 at the gristmill area there. So along from Route 1 heading east over that creek, which is not Little Hunting Creek, it's the other creek, by the gristmill, we're completing a couple thousand feet section there. It's in design, it's not in construction yet, but that will complete that trail, complete the Mount Vernon Trail, the Route 1 trail through our county. Now, the rest of that section south or west of Mount Vernon is not in great shape, and so that has been pointed out to us. But nonetheless, when that project is completed, there will be a continuous facility finally in the following the river slash getting back to Route 1. The challenge of Route 1 itself has been that we also still know that there are some barriers on Route 1. Of course, we've built many sidewalk segments on Route 1 over the past 19 years, but unfortunately, because of infill, we could not build shared use paths, which should be much more adequate bicycling facilities. And then as these larger projects came into focus and became real, we had to back away from the Doe Creek is the one down there at the grist mill. We had to back away from the Doe Creek bridge, which we were going to build a standalone pedestrian bridge, but then it didn't make sense with the taxpayers' dollars to build a couple $1 million bridge to just tear it out when Route 1 is widened. So as far as parallel or perpendicular connections to Route 1, we have had those requests start to come in, going back to when the Embark upzoning of the corridor occurred. And so we don't have many funded projects yet, but we are developing a funding plan to support the areas around the Embark areas that will have the higher density, which is essentially the most of the BRT stations. And then, of course, we're trying to pick up what we can with paving. This summer, Fort Hunt Road will be paved. It does not have enough room for bike lanes, but at the insistence of Supervisor Stork, we worked with VDOT to get some bike shoulders and some narrowing of the travel lanes to give a little bit more space for bicyclists. So there are still, millions and millions of dollars of needs and challenges. Of course, that's an older part of the county, and as with all of our older parts of the county, the development in the 30s and 40s and 50s did not require construction of trails and sidewalks and as much as today. So we've got some positive projects to deliver here in the next couple of years, but then there still will be the future need to get people to the Route 1 corridor, and as you said, to make connections really through connecting the other assets, the other bike ped assets, where there might just be a simple barrier between neighborhoods or to connect one section to another.
Thanks. Any more questions about the Route 1 corridor?
Well, this is Jim again. I just want to chime in about Sherwood Hall Lane has bike lanes thanks to the pavement projects a few years ago. And then when Fort Hunt gets at least a wider shoulder, you should be able to go up from Route 1 up Sherwood Hall Lane to Fort Hunt and then down to the Mount Vernon Parkway with some degree of confidence. But it's not perfect, but I think I just want to also say that what Chris and his crew and VDOT did for Fort Hunt Road was truly amazing. Really great effort and creative work, carved out. But I think we'll get at least 3 feet of shoulder, Chris, I think, on the entire length from Admiral Drive to Bellevue Boulevard. So, if you've ever ridden on Fort Hunt, you pretty much hug the white line or fall in the ditch. Either way, it's not a good experience. And so I think it's pretty amazing that they were able to do that on this older, 35-mile-an-hour road that has a lot of traffic. So it's really a tremendous thing. So I appreciate all that work that Fairfax County DOT and VDOT did to make that happen.
Yeah, and on a similar note, we're doing a little bit of that on Telegraph as well. The 2-lane section of Telegraph between Franconia and the Lee District Park. That's also being repaved, and given the precedent that we made on Fort Hunt, Supervisor Lusk's office asked us to ask VDOT to make some similar modifications to lane widths and everything to give a little bit more room on Telegraph. So It's not for every bicyclist, but for those cyclists that are comfortable now and might be encouraged to be comfortable in the future, the narrower lane widths for the cars will give that extra space.
Just one thing I wanted to add was, the effort that Jim Klein did with me to walk some of the parkland out there and potential trail connections. So we've kind of put them on our radar. On the eastern end, closer to Collingwood, there's the Paul Springs stormwater project that has to come through first. So once that's been designed, we can then look for trail opportunities to connect there. And then maybe through Colonel John Byers Park, and then over towards Martin Luther King Jr. Park. There's still a piece that we don't own any parkland between Route 1 and Martin Luther King Jr. Park, so we get hung up there for making connections, but he's certainly put some of those on our radar going east-west between Route 1 and Fort Hunter.
I just have one more item. If and I'm not sure if this falls into advocacy or not, but tomorrow is and this is for information only, is a rally for addressing the Sherwood Hall Lane Route 1 intersection, and it's 12 or 13 lanes or however many there are. There's not a lot of enthusiasm for that, and if you are at all inclined, there is a protest at 4 o'clock at 7929 Richmond Highway. And this is a interesting thing in that this protest, I'm kind of reading from this email here, protest mirrors a legendary 1967 protest led by Jube Shriver Sr., owner of Spring Garden Apartments, and Nelson Green Sr., owner of Green's Funeral Home in Alexandria, at which a couple coffins placed in the middle of Richmond Highway stopped traffic to call attention to the need for a stoplight at the intersection of Richmond Highway and Sherwood Hall Lane. That protest was successful. And now we have Jube Shiver Jr. and Nelson Green Jr. now running their father's businesses. And with the support of the new Gum Springs Civic Association, they will be holding this rally tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So if anything, it's good information for our committee to have. The 12 lanes on Sherwood Hall are pretty impressive when you look at the design. And I'm not sure, I don't think anybody really understands why you need all that lanes. It has a lot to do with Walmart probably. But I really encourage everybody to look carefully at that intersection and the efforts of these groups that trying to make it easier to cross Route 1. With 12 lanes, it'll probably be nearly impossible. It'd be even hard for just halfway across. So I just wanted to pass that information along.
And this is Sean. As a follow-up to that, that's also being supported by Coalition for Smarter Growth, Fairfax Families for Safe Streets, and FAB.
I think for those of us unfamiliar, 12 lanes, I just can't envision that. I mean, 6 lanes, I guess, in each direction for what is essentially a side street. I'm just astonished.
It is a huge width. I mean, there's double left turn lanes, there's right turn lanes and through lanes, and that's adds up fast. But it makes everybody able to get into Walmart at their heart's delight. So I guess that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's the new Gum Springs Civic Association. So you can Google them and go to their webpage and get the details. And the historical parallels are very interesting, I would say.
I have to wonder, Chris, is there any place where we have 12 lanes in the county?
Yeah, your Braddock Road's almost that wide.
Yeah, that's true, but this is not Braddock Road.
Jim answered the question. Just for full information for those in the meeting. The standard cross section is 10 lanes, so it's 6 general purpose lanes, whatever we're calling them, for cars, and then am I saying that right? No, it should be 8 lanes. It should be 6 lanes for cars and then the 2 lanes for the bus rapid transit. Here, hold on, let me pull up another email, make sure I get this right.
Well, that's for Route 1, right?
That's
Or
for Route
something-
1.
something
That's
like
for
Route
Route 1. And then Jim is 3 northbound general purpose lanes, 3 southbound general purpose lanes, 2 bus rapid transit lanes in a median, and then left turn lanes at intersections. And so Jim is correct. Then at Sherwood Hall there in the Gum Springs community, there's actually a double left shown to go to Sherwood Hall and maybe to Walmart. It's in
No,
one
it's
or
to
both,
Walmart also.
one or both directions. And then I think there's also a right turn lane. So the other thing, though, in response to this criticism, we are doing a lane reduction. I'm reading from the email again. A lane reduction evaluation on July 27th, 2021. The Board of Supervisors directed staff to evaluate the feasibility of lane reductions where the number of lanes exceeds the typical section for the corridor improvements. And so what that means is the turn lanes. The cross section itself obviously needs to support the 6 general purpose lanes and the 2 bus rapid transit lanes. But the 2 separate projects have agreed to do the analysis to determine are the right turn lanes needed, are the double left turn lanes needed. So they're at the request of the community and the board, that analysis is underway. So or will be underway. So they're looking at that. The balance that we find ourselves in the Department of Transportation is that while active transportation is certainly, and active transportation is the industry term for pedestrian and bicycle issues, active transportation is at the forefront of everything we do. It's being prioritized now more than ever before. For instance, in Tyson's, when Route 7 was built for the Silver Line, there are no right turn lanes at those intersections. So we're willing to accept a level of congestion in prioritizing the benefit of narrowing the roadway width. However, we're still the Department of Transportation. We're not the Department of Active Transportation. So we have to balance vehicles. We have to provide high quality transit. And if we were to if we were to induce gridlock, and that's what this lane reduction analysis will be studying, what level of congestion would removing some of these turn lanes create? Will it be an acceptable level of congestion, or would it induce gridlock? If we were to induce gridlock, then the outcome would be people cutting through neighborhoods, people not being able to get out of their neighborhoods, but people cutting through neighborhoods, diverting to other streets that are even less adequate for high-speed, high-volume traffic, which would make pedestrian safety in the neighborhoods worse. So that's the balance that the Department of Transportation has to manage on projects like this. But that's that's, I think, a summary of why it is at 12 or 13 lanes in the design today, but that we are analyzing whether that can be reduced.
Well, let me ask this. The committee got a presentation from the deputy county manager, right? Where a goal was set to relook at our streetscapes to create more welcoming, smart streets that would in fact attract the type of it's tough to put your environment, culture, attract the type of thinking about moving around that would transform people's lives. It was a very compelling presentation. And as you guys well know, I pointed out a little problem in the Braddock district where I think the proposals that are being done are not don't comport with that vision. And this really sounds like a lot of money is being spent going away from that vision. I'm just wondering, are we really committed to smart streets? If the money is basically going to these super intersections and, you know, a fear of gridlock, and the like, you know, will smart streets, where you really need them, and this is where you really need them, always be canceled because it's where people want to go. So consequently, we can't have gridlock. So consequently, we'll just make the streets wider. We'll just add more lanes. I'm having a hard time balancing the visions as it's been presented to our committee and the implementation as we're choosing these hotspots for us to take a look at. I know, Chris, you're not going to be able to answer that question, but
well, you posed that question in an interesting, in a very fair, critical way. You know, if these are the destinations that are being created, then are the destinations too successful in attracting cars that they're not the attractive pedestrian destination that the deputy county executive was talking about? And that's you know, I think if we were to be building fresh, like for instance we are in areas around Reston, around the Reston metro stations, where developers are redoing, you know, acres and acres and acres of what was office parks into these new environments, we have the opportunity to do exactly what Deputy County Executive Flynn was talking about. Here on the Route 1 corridor, the challenge is that it's a primary route. It's literally United States Route 1, and it carries a very significant amount of traffic in the north-south direction, serving not only, you know, our local communities in Prince William and Alexandria, our neighbors at each end, but also, you know, commuter traffic that's ultimately going to other states. So that's again the balance as the Department of Transportation that we have to somehow reconcile. And in this case, that we're introducing high quality transit that also has to function. So when I talk about gridlock, if the bus rapid transit cannot move rapid, if it's not rapid, it's not bus rapid transit. So then that investment would be questionable. So you do pose an interesting question, though, when we are trying to create these environments, you know, where we know we have a lot going on. Is that how do we make that reality possible?
Well, let me ask it another way. Where are the smart streets? Is there a smart street in Fairfax County that's some sort of demonstrator or something where we can point to and say, this works? That's the type of behavior we want?
I think it depends on what you define as smart streets. I think what Deputy County Executive Flynn was talking about is complete streets. And complete streets have all of those elements that serve the different transportation users, but also prioritize a quality walking and biking environment in the off-street portion of the streets, with things such as street trees, benches, artwork, retail frontage, like restaurants, outdoor restaurant seating, things like that. And yes, you have that now in Mosaic and Reston, Fairfax Corner. That areas already being developed along the Stover Line corridor out further in like the Innovation Station area, and again, a lot of it's under construction right now. You won't see it, for another few years or so. So yes, those environments do exist. Tyson's as a whole has also pockets of those areas that are being developed. The borough in Tyson's, for instance, as it continues to grow. The other side, the part called the Mile, as they build what they're building, each of those streets are complete streets and have those smart elements that make for comfortable walking, but more than that, a quality of life aspect to living and working there. So those do exist. Again, the challenge on Route 1 is you're still trying to manage a major arterial along with that, and that is the challenge.
Thanks, Chris. That's probably the best answer that we could get, but it is, yeah, that's a challenge. Any other comments on Route 1? Okay, well, that means we can, at this point, it's not 8:30 yet, but we certainly can open the floor to our guests, and no particular order. I don't think we have a hand raising thing, but there's only 3 of you, so speak up.
Well, this is Philip Latassa from Friends of Academic Creek. Betsy Martin made the arrangements for us to participate this evening, and I plan to show a video of ours expressing our concerns about the Cinderbed Road bikeway in particular, but all other trees to asphalt conversions in general. I don't know if I can just share my screen and show that on YouTube here, or if not, I can put the link in the chat, and let's one of the hosts do that.
Yeah, David, why don't you try taking down your agenda and use your magic powers to give Philip the ability to present or share screen if possible. Okay, the agenda went down.
So I can't make him a panelist, which would mean he can't share his screen. If you want to put the link in the chat,
yes.
I could do it, or
there it is.
All right, so I can. Okay. Share web browser, maybe. Okay. Do y'all see the video page?
Yeah. Yes, I can see it.
Let me know if the sound is okay. Oh, it is.
There is no sound, although the the sound is just a little musical background to make the video less tedious.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Philip, I think you still have the floor. Let's let you have any, do you have any other comments?
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Well, that video basically presents our case about the Cinderbed Road Bikeway, and I'm sorry we're presenting this case at such an advanced state of planning, but we're not always aware of things. And the argument applies to every trees to asphalt conversion project, every project for paving in the floodplain. It's not going to contribute to our Chesapeake Bay preservation goals. It's not going to contribute to our climate resiliency goals. And it could be argued it would contribute to carbon reduction goals, but only if there were some data showing that they would actually reduce the number of vehicles by people, commuters, giving up their vehicles to bike on this particular path that are not already biking on some other path that's already available. And there are many available in this case. It just seems that given the climate change situation, the time for old solutions is gone, and we really need to hang on to every carbon sink tree that we've got. That's about all I've got to say.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, so we have a couple of other guests. I want to be sure they get an opportunity to be heard.
I can go if you want.
Yeah, please.
All right. I'm going to try not to take much of your time. My name's Casey. I've lived in the Northern Virginia area for about 15 years. So I know right now I'm living in Fairfax City, but more of my interest is around Reston because I've lived around Reston for longer. My parents currently live there. They've lived there for about 4 to 5 years, and I've lived there for about 2 years. One of my what I noticed when I lived there, and also when I travel around with my parents and enjoy Lake Ann Plaza, is while there's a lot of paved bike paths in the area, and while they're incredibly, they're super enjoyable to walk on. They're super enjoyable to travel around, and the scenery is awesome. One of the things I've noticed while living there is that a lot of the paved paths seem to be designed for purely leisure. And I know a lot of the paths around the area in Reston, they connect to what seems to be different economic zones. And I just looked at active Fairfax transportation map, and I'm loving what I'm seeing because a lot of the proposed paths on that were some of the ones that I was actually going to suggest based on a model I created on documents I was reading of how Netherlands developed their bike paths. And I can link where I find those documents. I'm sure people here have seen them in the past. But I used a model called the elastic thread model, and it showed me if I connected all the school districts, economic districts, based on population of an area. It kind of helped map out, like, if there was nothing there, what would be the general direction that people would travel. And what I've noticed in the process is that permeability across Dulles Toll Road is definitely an important one, and access to like South Lakes High School, Langston Hughes Middle School to the various economic zones is also definitely important through that process. And so I guess I'm not really stating like an argument or whatever. I'm just saying like that's something I've noticed when I've lived in Reston. And if anyone's interested in where I find these manuals for bicycle infrastructure, I can happily include the link, but I'm not gonna, I won't make you sit through me going through a manual document about elastic thread method. I don't think that'll be worth anyone's time here, but I just that's just sort of me, and I'm definitely interested in joining in conversations in a bunch of these activist organizations. I love how there seems to be a protest going on. I really love learning that information. And yeah, I enjoyed listening to people on this first call. So I'm happy to join. So thank you.
Thanks, Casey. The elastic thread model, I have a question. Does that provide some sort of metric that one might be able to use in planning on, say, path placement? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, so it's not really so basically what you do, normally what you would do is you would take a map and you'd square, like, there's that nice Reston, Virginia map. I'm sure people have seen it. Like it's like an artist rendition, but it's a pretty accurate rendition. And so basically what you do is you find like where various populations are and you box it out and you say, okay, this is the entrance to 200 people in this area. We'll put 1 dot at the entrance. And what happens is you do a thread to that, to maybe the closest school that's to that residential area, and the closest grocery to that residential area, and then the closest, I don't know, ATM, let's just say that. And you connect all those residential dots to sort of see where they overlap. And it sort of gives you a picture based on how, like, for a given population size of an area, what direction people would travel in order to get to these economic zones or education zones, public zones. Maybe there's a homeless shelter that would make it easier for people to access a bike path on. But yeah, it sort of helps just sort of give guidance of where priority of paths to sort of consider maybe improving or putting down. And there's no metrics. I'm not sure if any metrics. I do know population size one, that's not data that I had access to. So I used housing types. So like single family home, townhouse, 4-story condo, multi-story condominiums in Reston Town Center. So I used that to sort of determine how many dots a certain place did or within an area. But to give me sort of a relative idea. So nothing about this is like super specific. It's also a work in progress that I'm doing. But I've noticed a general trend while I'm doing it. And yeah, that's all I got.
Okay, thanks. And Ethan, I guess you're the third member of the public to join us. What would you like to say?
I don't have anything to bring up. I'm just here for a Boy Scout merit badge. I have to attend a public meeting and take notes on the different sides and arguments and stuff that's going on.
Okay, well, you're certainly welcome to do that, and I hope we gave you good grist for the mill. If you didn't get enough arguments, we could start an argument that you could then record, but hopefully you've gotten enough. Okay.
So Ken, if I can just jump in.
Go ahead.
We had I just noticed someone on the attendee list joined in kind of halfway through. It's just a call-in user 202 phone number. So I just hit unmute for you. If we can hear you now. If you have a comment or question you'd like to jump in with.
No, thank you. No comments at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, which gives us an opportunity to deal with some of the active and unresolved issues. I think we've already done pedestrian, Route 1 pedestrian safety and Route 1 embark, unless there are other questions there. Well, the next thing on the list is Jim Plan anyway. So Jim, do you want to give us an update on the liaison with the Transportation Advisory Committee?
I don't have anything to update now. I don't think they meet during the summer. So no progress there. Right now all I've been doing is forwarding our agenda to Pete Sitnick. And we'll see if we can't get that going a little better coming up this fall.
Okay, thanks. Did I skip the staff report from Chris Wells?
Yeah, you did. I had to switch to my phone and I left those notes by my laptop. Briefly, a couple things I was going to mention. One was that the annual Street Smart twice a year Street Smart campaign is coming up to coincide with the upcoming changing of the clocks. That's, if you're not familiar with Street Smart, that's multimedia campaign for pedestrian bicycle safety that is executed by the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. Where the current media is or idea is that life is fragile, the shattered lives. COG did execute a new contract for the next few years for that, but given the beginning of the federal fiscal year, the new creative won't be developed until next spring or even next fall. So that is our region's biggest public safety campaign for pedestrian bicycle issues. The other thing I wanted to mention was the committee should be aware we have a project on Sunrise Valley Drive between Soapstone and Reston Parkway, where our original scope was a parallel cycle track and sidewalk. However, due to the constraints of utilities and undeveloped properties along there, staff is currently recommending that we do a shared use path to fill in the missing links between some of the areas that have developed with either a cycle track or with a shared use, with an urban shared use path. That has been, we've briefed Supervisor Alcorn on that, and he asked us to brief FAB. So we have a meeting with Bruce Wright and some of the other Reston bicyclists this Friday. That's a mixed conclusion at this point. Obviously, we would prefer to build a parallel cycle track and sidewalk. However, we would have to take a building, at least one building, to do that. We would also have to delay the project by years to accomplish the utility relocations. And so staff is recommending not to do that and to just do the shared use path instead as an interim facility. So that has been the recommendation for now, and we'll, depending on public input and input from the board, decide on what the ultimate decision on that is. And then I guess lastly, and hopefully you can still hear me, I'm parked now. The I-66 trail project, we continue to work with VDOT on the development of the sections that we're working on, the Vienna Metro section and the Random Hills Post Forest section by the Government Center. There was public meetings for both of those in the past couple months. We also had a briefing for FAB on those. In the Vienna area, we've developed a concept of an interim facility, which would be an interim on-road facility delineated by flexi posts. But then again, the ultimate facilities has currently envisioned are cycle tracks at cycle track at Vienna and a proper shared use path along Random Hills and Post Forest. And those were the three things I thought I would mention. The other thing that David and I are working on is the Capital Bike Share contract was renewed for the region just these past couple weeks. And so we have of course, it's a multi-jurisdictional contract. So we have to work to get the language for Fairfax County to match the regional version that we're working on, and that's has its challenges, but that's ongoing. So if there's any questions on those.
Hey, Chris, this is Sean. I had a question about the when you mentioned the bike share. Have you heard any update on scooters coming into the county or anything along those lines?
Yes, 2 companies were applied to operate scooters in the past couple months. David, it's Bird, and what's the other one? Spin?
I thought it was Link.
A Link, okay.
I have to
So
double check which apps I downloaded.
each of those were authorized their initial allocation of 300 scooters. So there theoretically are 600 scooters out there right now. I've seen the Birds in Centerville and George Mason University, Fairfax areas, and where was I? I must have been somewhere inside the Beltway. Can't remember where it was, but I've seen them in 3 different locations now in the county, just organically spreading themselves.
Migrate. The Birds. Sorry.
Is there? I cannot remember this. I know. I'm sure we talked about it at one point, but is there going to be any sort of data collection on how those are being used, or will any of that information come back to the county?
Yes, that's part of the agreement that they have to operate. They will share their data with us, but since it's new, I don't think we've seen any of it yet. Our Office of Cable and Consumer Services actually is the regulatory agency regulating them, because they, believe it or not, they regulate the taxi cabs and the trash companies, so they have the most similar regulatory experience. But David is our staff in the Department of Transportation, who will be working with them on data and public inquiries and things like that.
Thank you.
Also on the list that might be talked about are the National Capital Trail Network in Fairfax County, Mason Neck Trail Extension, Mount Vernon Trail Extension at Gristmill Park. You did talk about that, and the Arlington Boulevard Trail.
First, I could take that if you like. All right, so
thank you.
Sure. So we have created an updated map of the expanded Capital Trails Network that you're familiar with. We shared that map with this committee and then the supervisor's offices for feedback. Very minor tweaks were made. So I think we're pretty good to go on the network. However, it has to be now cleaned up and presented in a form that it's useful for the Capital Trails Coalition acceptable. So what we need to do is determine which areas or which parts of the trail, which segments are planned and which ones are existing. And that's a pretty big effort that our summer intern has been working on. Unfortunately, in PDF, he did not have access to GIS, which means we have to digitize all that data for him. So I'm waiting for him to submit that to me. And then I have set aside time pretty much every week from now until the end of the year to work on cleaning up the data so we can, send it over to the Trails Coalition. So it's an ongoing effort, but we're getting there. Does
Thanks,
that
Nicole.
answer your question? So it does include, the specific trails like the Mason Neck, and I think we were able to accommodate all the comments we received, apart from the fact that we can, pave trails that are not marked as paved trails in the trails plan, at least at this part or this update. Future updates, if the our comprehensive plan is updated and a unpaved trail is changed to a paved trail, then we can include those trails in the Capital Trails Network. But until such time, we can only work with what is currently in our plans, but have those existing planned trails designated as a regional network.
At the last meeting, there was a presentation by representatives from the Capital Trails Coalition. They were going to provide examples, I guess, what other jurisdictions had done to encourage prompt building of the trails. Was that package ever received?
I don't think so. I can follow up. So tell me again what that package was.
It was, I think, Prince George's County and maybe Montgomery County. Board of Supervisors endorsed the Capital Trail Coalition network within their jurisdiction.
Oh,
and
yes.
They committed to building it by 2028 or some such year.
Right.
So and they were
So
going to send that to I guess Chris's office, and then was going to distribute it to the committee.
yeah, I can
So we
follow
get
up
the-
with her. I don't think I've seen it. But
So we
I
get
will
these
look for it.
trails built and expedited.
Yeah. So I've told the Capital Trails Coalition that until we have updated our trail network, it would be hard for us to endorse and commit to the current network, because we know this is not necessarily the full network that we want to see. And we're already including mostly trails that are either existing or funded. And we also know that that we can't commit to a timeline at this point, neither with the current network nor the updated network. Knowing the way we fund trails is different from other jurisdictions. We have the Transportation Priorities Plan process to go through, which is different from other jurisdictions where they can choose every year, a couple millions worth of improvements. They have that flexibility. So we don't have that flexibility until we have that opportunity to add new projects to our Transportation Priority Plan, which is probably not going to be until 2030 potentially, and it's too big of a network to build out at the time. So we are looking more at a 25-year time frame, 30-year time frame to build it out. Unlike other jurisdictions that have a smaller network or have a different way of financing their trails.
Yeah, but Howard, you're correct though that there was also some language, resolution language, or something like that the other jurisdictions had used to try and accelerate things. So I have not received that either. So Nicole can follow up and for the committee's use to encourage accelerated development.
Along the same lines, the carryover funds related to transportation issues, I think, was $2.7 million. And in that were about, 6 different studies? And one of them was the multimodal crossings over Interstate 495. That was requested, I guess, by the Board of Supervisors 2 years ago. Is that going to be funded by this $2.7 million, or is that just kind of a laundry list of studies.
So I read the carryover budget when it came out, excuse me, the proposed carryover budget, and I was mainly looking to see that the active Fairfax Transportation Plan Phase 2 recommendation was in there, which it was. If it listed the Route 50 multimodal study as part of the projects, then that is on the table for consideration. There was also the Wheelie Avenue Phase 2, I believe a Gallows Road study, and other studies.
And McLean. And
yeah.
I'm just thinking with all of these studies, you can't buy that, I don't think, for, I don't know what consultants cost, but I don't think $2.7 million is going to
No,
cover
that amount was intended to fund these studies. For instance, the Phase 2 of active Fairfax, Nicole, is what, 400,000 ish. So you know, yeah. So you know, some of those studies are smaller rather than larger. So you know, one might be a $200,000 study, one might be an $800,000 study, but the total dollar amount proposed in carryover is included to be able to fund those studies that were listed.
I would like to, for our next meeting, make a request of staff. I saw Philip's pictures of the trails that were overgrown and sandy, washed out, and that type of thing. And it just brought to mind the issue of maintenance, trail maintenance. Could we get an update on the maintenance budget as it stands right now? What is budgeted for maintenance? And how much is in it, and what has happened to it over the last year or so? In other words, we've made a big issue. Every time I get to interact with supervisors, I say trail maintenance, trail maintenance, trail maintenance. You guys love to cut the ribbons and then abandon the trail. I just love to get a status of maintenance funding, and is it going back to being abandoned? I think we usually have nothing. So not necessarily for tonight, not off the top of your head, but if one of you folks could give us a maintenance update.
Yeah, we can reach out to the maintenance folks and see if they can prepare us those you know, high level points that you're asking. Thank you.
Right. I mean, my objective here, I think, would be we may want to draft something to the board that basically says we continue to be apprised. The public comes to our meetings and points out continued maintenance failures and problems, and they're forcing us to, you know, look at alternative trails that the general public might not want us to do, and that type of thing. A whole bunch of things that rather than building more trails, we've always said it would be nice. I understand it's different buckets to find money and to maintain the ones that we've got. Radical case of thinking we need a trail, and the site survey goes out and finds out that there was a trail there all along. It's just overgrown. Which actually has happened. So anyway, second question I have is for Beth. Are we extending the Liberty Bell Trail? I hear rumors that the Liberty Bell Trail is being extended further south. Is that correct?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can find out for you. I think the intent was to extend it. I don't know the status of funding for that off the top of my head, but I can find out for you.
I can probably.
Rumors in my neighborhood is under construction, so rather than riding down there and doing a site survey myself, I'm kind of wondering. That'd be a great connection in Burke there. So I'm just kind of wondering if it's come true. I knew it was on the plans, but always
Which end? The
south.
This is
So-
Carl.
Ben,
Yeah.
this is
This is
Sean.
Sean, go ahead.
Sorry, just I live about quarter-mile from the south trail that's being currently built to connect to the rest of the Liberty Bell Trail, and I've seen them working on it. It is being built right now.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
So it looks like they're missing a bridge and pavement at this point.
But they must have built to the point where they're going to get the bridge, right?
Yeah, and from the bridge back up to Hillside, there's large concrete block supports that have been filled in with dirt for switchbacks. So they've got this completely man-made big big ramp of switchbacks to get up to the road, and that's just dirt at this point. But it's all built. It's all filled in. So.
How far south? All the way to Rolling Road?
To Rolling.
It goes to Hillside Road.
Goes from Liberty Bell up to Hillside.
Hillside, okay.
I think we call it something different. We don't call it the Liberty Bell extension, so it might be under a different project name, which is.
I think it's called the Pohick Creek Valley Trail.
Yes, it's. I will say, I think we got complaints about that construction. Someone from the public was very unhappy about cutting a path through the natural area. So we got a very stern no comment from the public.
So. Well, you got hundreds of positive feedback, so.
Well, good. Yes. Thank you. We are
they were
scarring the earth.
Absolutely, there were objections to the Cross County Trail too, and the users are so much you can't ride it on the weekends. So,
I have one comment for the TSB members to be aware of ahead of next month's meeting. Tom and I are presenting the 2020 Trails bond project list to the park board, I believe during their committee meeting on September 22nd. They're actually having their committee meeting and their board meeting on the same day, which took me 2 years to figure out what that was all about, but it's all happening on the same day. So September 22nd, I think the earliest it would be 6 o'clock. You can get the board item and the information, which will be posted to the Park Authority board's page, I believe on the 15th. And I will send that information out to all of you. So you will have it ahead of the October meeting, in which Tom and I will go over that in detail with you guys as well. So just wanted to give you a heads up to be on the lookout for that.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, this is Jim Klein. I just put something in the chat about the 6th annual tour to Mount Vernon, which is Saturday, October 23rd. And we're looking for volunteers. If you want to sign up, I put the link on the chat box. So anybody who wants to be a race steward or help people turn the right direction or whatever, volunteers are always welcome. So thank you.
This is Wade Smith. There's an upcoming meeting on the I-495 next. I don't have the date in front of me, but it's in a couple of weeks. Chris, maybe you have the date. But the question is, do you have any new news on the parallel trail? Is there anything to update on that, or is it still the same, or no new news?
I don't know the meeting date, and no, I believe the only news I heard was the Timberley community they've continued to negotiate with the concerns of the Timberley community, and we seem to be moving in the direction of addressing their concerns.
Do you have any idea of how you are addressing their concerns?
at being good public stewards. I don't know the details. I'm sorry. They were interested in the width of the trail. They had concerns about shared use. We are widening the sidewalk on the Lewinsville Road Bridge and doing some safety improvements for the crosswalk. So, but any more details than that, I don't know.
So
I did in the chat about that, the 495 next meeting. It's on September 29th.
Thank you, Sean. So, several meetings everyone needs to pay attention to. There's active Fairfax meetings. Inputs for there are very valuable. That Park Authority meeting for the bonds probably pretty important. And 495 next, obviously, especially for those who live in the northern part of the county. All right, I guess I get credit for giving everybody 7 minutes back. A motion to adjourn is in order.
Aren't you going to have public comments?
We just had public comments.
Sorry, I attended hoping to show you guys a little film about our concerns about Cinderbed Road Bikeway.
We just had that.
You saw the film?
Yes, we spent 20 minutes watching the film.
Sorry, I was told to show up at 8:30 and I did.
No, Philip showed up, stayed for the meeting, and showed the film, and we had a discussion on the film, and so we've already dealt with that.
Okay, all right. Well.
I think the questions about the comment was a little bit early, Ken. I mean, the public comment period is a little bit early, and Betsy was wanting to, under the understanding it would be at 8:30. Maybe my fault.
Yeah. We simply got to that point with the meeting, so
I'll move we adjourn.
Carl seconds.
So it is 8:54 and meeting's adjourned. I'll see you guys next month.
Okay.